are here. All right, so welcome everyone to our first virtual VDM program. We're so excited to have you all here. We wanted to, of course, keep good with our time. So I know we said we would start at 7, and as people continue to arrive into this virtual room, I think the conversation will flow where as people arrive, they can jump right in. So without further ado, again, welcome. My name is Sabria Hassan, and I am the Director of Programs for the Banneker-Douglass Museum in Annapolis, Maryland. So welcome to Creative Connects, the Art of Activism. I'm so excited to be here with you all, as you could probably imagine. As many of you know, our programming came to a pause in order to align ourselves with the governor in communicating very important information around COVID-19. So as we continue to work with the governor's office, governor's coordinating offices in spreading the word on keeping each other safe, it's virtual programs like this one that will allow the museum to stay connected to the community that we love all so much. So I'd like to start by, of course, thanking the BDM staff for continuing to work together to keep the programs running smoothly with the leadership of Director Chanel Compton, and of course our Director of Communications, Mr. Robert James, and our amazing Administrative Manager, Mr. LaRon Herbert. We're able to continue to carry out the mission of the museum, which is to serve, to document, to interpret, and to promote African American history and culture, particularly in Maryland, through exhibitions, programs, and projects in order to improve the understanding and appreciating of America's rich cultural diversity for all. The Banneker-Douglass Museum is a component of the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, which is a unit of the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives. As an executive department agency whose mandate is to coordinate community outreach efforts to organizations and local governments across Maryland, they serve as the unifying principle for all its departments. So from back in February of 2020, we've been celebrating the opening of our newest exhibit, the Black Vote Mural Project. And of course, that again came to a halt, an unforeseen halt. But as you have not had a chance to visit the museum and see this beautiful exhibit made up of 17 murals of different African-American artists throughout the state, I really, really encourage you to, as soon as our doors reopen, make your way down to the museum. So before we get started, I would like to recognize some of our special guests who are on the call with us today. Reverend Tamara E. Wilson, the chair of the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, and all other commissioners who may be with us. Also, Christina W. Coy, Administrative Director for the Governor's Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs. I would also like to recognize any members of the Banneker-Douglass Museum's Foundation and Friends groups, and any elected officials, and of course, all of you for being here. And this program is made possible by the Maryland Humanities, Four Rivers Heritage Area, and Banneker-Douglass Museum Foundation. So I know you see all of these beautiful faces who are here with us, who make up our panel. So we're really just going to jump right into it. I found that with virtual events, more than in-person events, once the conversation gets going, it moves so quickly, and I want to make sure that we have time to take any questions that the audience may have. So if you did register through our Eventbrite link or any of the other links that we use for registration, you're probably familiar with the bios of our different panelists. We have with us today artist Mr. Jabari Jefferson, Miss Greta Chapin-McGil, also an artist, both artists from our current exhibit, the Black Folk Mural Project. And then we have with us Mr. Michael Zaki Smith, who's an activist and member of the Next 100. So as we jump right into the questions, the first question is, it's somewhat broad, and it's actually for each panelist to answer. And I'll start with Greta. And what I wanted to ask is, when you hear the term social activism, what comes to mind? And how do you use your artistry as a form of social activism?
Well, to me, social activism means that interacting with the community, interacting with people who are like-minded, people who have a agenda that is compatible with your own. These are, to me, is a way to react socially with other people. I think it's important that we react with other people, like-minded people, so that we can spread the word of what is important to us, important to our community, important to our humanity, if you will, because it's all important. It's important, especially at this point, that we recognize that all of us are important to each other. We can't even make it without each other. So if we don't begin to relate on that level, then it's going to be not so pretty. I have said many times that I do feel that I call myself the afterhuman. And I think people will understand that at some point in time, all of this racism, this hatred, this disgust for others is going to fall away. It has to. And what will be left will be the afterhumans. The afterhumans will be creative people. They will be writers. They will be esoteric. They will have something positive to say. And there will be politicians, but they will be interested in what their community who has elected them has to say. They will be responsive to us.
I need to get it together because I want to be an afterhuman.
Come on and join the club.
Yes, I want to be an afterhuman too. Thank you so much for that, Greta. Jabari, did you want to go ahead and answer that question?
Yeah. So for me, social activism, just starting with the definitions, the goal to bring change. As an artist, it's, a job as an artist is all about communication. And so social activism starts with language, right? And committing. So even as an artist myself, I believe social activism is a language that challenges thinking, right? That challenges imagination. Over the last couple of days and going to what was just said, one of the things that I see that's lacking is lack of imagination, like even to understand what she was just talking about the afterhuman, you have to be able to like imagine that. And I think imagination isn't really talked about in the conversation of social activism, because that's what deals with changing dogma. That's what deals with changing routine. That's what deals with challenging our status quos of what's possible. So, I mean, social activism falls in many different forms, whether it's just educating your family, educating your community. But as artists, I personally feel, even for myself, social activism definition deals more about what people think is possible, what people think is the norm, and what people get used to. So that's it. It may seem small or micro, but I think on a big scale, it has long-term impacts that touch on a lot of the other bigger obstacles that we seem to focus on. A lot of these big obstacles, what I've been seeing lack imagination, of what's really possible. So that's my personal definition of social activism that I practice.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for that. And Zaki?
Yeah. So although I'm down as a activist, I'm an artist too, to some degree. Not in the sense of maybe painting or murals, but like I was telling you all earlier, I'm a barber by trade, and so one of the ways that I've utilized my art as a barber is to pretty much activate the community, right? Because we look at the barber shop; those are the social clubs for men, right, and women in terms of the beauty salons and so forth as well. And those are places where a lot of times individuals come for their advice, how to get activated in the thing, to talk about what is possible, to motivate one another. And so utilizing my craft in the barbershop as I've done in the past, like those are the things that I've done. So when I think about social activism, I think like directly interacting with the people, right? And meeting them where they are, no matter where they are, right? Just meeting them where they are and engaging them from that platform. Again, just using my artistry as a barber, engaging and building relationships with the community is one of the ways that I utilize my art to get people involved and engaged in things.
I remember every time when we were planning for this, because this event was initially supposed to happen in February, or no, in March. And every time I would talk to my colleagues and I would say, don't tell Zaki he's not an artist. Because he does, and I get it. I mean, I get it. Like, as someone who's not, because our director, Chanel Compton, she's an artist. Like, she creates beautiful art. And, I try and get into that realm too. And I say, well, I'm an artist. I create programs. So I feel you on that. And I've seen the art that you create. So yes, I agree. You're an artist as well. So thank you for that. So we'll jump into the next question. And this one,
sorry,
sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to like tag on because you after you talk, you forget you didn't say certain things. Lastly, social activism also, in terms of what everyone said, but social activism is definitely education, right? We kind of leave that out of the conversation. Education of what's around you, education of your peers, education of the ecosystem that you inhabit with everybody else, especially people that don't look like you, education on things that you don't know and activities you'll participate in. And so, and I feel like that process comes before the actual action. And that's another part that we don't talk about. We all action, but where is the education in this conversation? So I just wanted to piggyback and add that to the conversation. Let's not forget about self-development.
I appreciate that, and I thank you. And I think especially now with the current state of the country, I think education is really a strong, because people are going to learn. Like, and people who didn't know before, there's going to be no choice but to learn. So I do appreciate that, Jabari. Thank you. So Greta, you studied art at Howard University in the 1970s. And I have to tell you, so much, that's okay, because I wish that I was an active human in the 1960s. So much came out of the Black Power movement and so much more. It's like one of my favorite time periods. So can you tell us a little bit more about that experience and how it, how it shaped who you are and the work that you do?
Well, I looked at that question and I said, oh my gosh, you really took me back. You talk about Throwback Thursday, that was it.
Okay. There you go. TBT.
So I would like to say though that I feel very fortunate to have been around at that time of the Black Power movement, and the music of my time, the writers of my time, the just the headiness of the time was exciting to me. I mean, here I am fresh out of high school and I go to college and it's like I'm listening to The Last Poets. I'm listening to